And then last but certainly not least, these are things I want you to start tracking right now so you can set yourself up for success into the summer months. Today is going to be, as they always are, a very actionable training. But what I really want to talk to all of you about today is really how you lean into the summer months starting now. How do you plan for a successful summer? How do you make sure that what you do in May and June is really going to set you up for success in July and August when we do see a lot of seasonality? So today is very actionable. Today is going to be full of insights. I am super excited. Get your pen, get your paper, get your notepad, grab your favorite beverage. We are in for an action-packed hour. This is going to be great. So like I said, today is called your May Momentum Intensive, right? What do we do in the month of May that's going to set up for success all summer long? It's what we're going to talk about. So let's get into it. We've got a lot to cover and not a ton of time to do it. So I know a number of you may have seen me speak somewhere, or maybe you found me on social media. Maybe one of your colleagues or one of your reps that is a device rep or an injectable rep told you to check this training out. But however you got here, I'm so glad you're here. Here's what we're going to cover today. We are going to start with really talking about how you create a patient experience that ignites referrals. I've said this once, I've said it twice, and I'll say it a million more times. Referrals are truly the holy grail of how you market to the affluent. And not only that, we know that the affluent do business based on relationships. So everything we need to do in and out of summer, but especially during periods of seasonality, well, that's exactly what today is about, right? How do we ignite your referral ecosystem all summer long? What do we even offer people during the summer, right? There's a very specific framework to how you create offers that drive people to buy in a concentrated time frame without discounting. It's called the value framework. I'm going to teach you that today. We're going to talk a little bit about emotional drivers and messaging because, beat the heat, like that's been done a million times, and you need messaging that's actually going to compel people to come in and discover new treatments all summer long. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then last, but certainly not least, we're going to talk about executing it and benchmarks and putting this into, fruition and all those things related to implementing. So like I said, grab your pen, grab your paper. We have got a ton to learn today. Now, you may not know who I am. Some of you, I see some familiar faces. It's great to see you back. Others of you don't know who like this Elton John lookalike staring back at you is. So if you are new here, my name is Haroun. I'm a brand marketing expert and I work exclusively in aesthetic medicine. No bariatric surgeons, no chiropractors, I'm sure they're great people, but what I know is longevity and aesthetic medicine. So that is what I'm here to help you all master today. Hope you're in the right place. Very good. But let's talk a little bit to really kick us off today about why summer is so full of opportunity, but at the same time, it is, a time of scarcity for a lot of people if they don't know what they're doing. Done right, summer can be massive. People are thinking about, both in the months of, April and May and into June and even July, about wedding season. They are thinking about their beach body. They are thinking about events. They're thinking about all the fun things that come with summer and wanting to look and feel their best. So yes, certain parts of summer, namely July and especially August, can be seasonal a little bit, all, industry-wide. I want you to buck that trend, okay? We have many clients who do their record months of the year during summer. You just have to know what to do. That's what we're going to show you how to do. But again, despite the fact that there is a lot of opportunity during the summer months, if you lean into it the right way, a lot of practices just get lazy about marketing. They don't know what to do with their marketing during the summer. They don't really invest in their patient experience during the summer because they figure, we'll just do that in the fall. We need you to be a lot more intentional about your summer and a lot more intentional about the experience you deliver to your patients during summer. And ultimately, when you let your patient experience slide, when you let your marketing ingenuity kind of slide, what's going to happen? Well, of course, that's going to show up in your marketing results. It's going to show up in the fact that you're getting fewer referrals. It's going to show up in the fact that you're getting fewer rebookings, which is a very important indicator, by the way. We're going to talk about that later today. So summer can be a massive period of opportunity, especially May and into June, even July, but you have to do it the right way. You have to operate with intent. You have to be strategic. Today's training is exactly that. So hope you're excited. I would love to hear from all of you in the in the chat, in the comments. Like, let me know. Like, do you typically find summer is decent for you and you're steady? Do you find it is in fact one of your busiest seasons, or maybe you are one of those practices that finds, hey, you know what? We do have a big challenge during summer and we do slow down. In the comments down there, let me know like how you feel about summer. I'd love to kind of gauge where this audience is at. But let's talk about how we lean into it and do things the right way. So like I touched on a little bit earlier, there really are three pillars that are going to set you up for success all summer long. Three pillars that you really want to start to lean into right now in April. And the first one is going to be really looking, like I said, at your patient experience. Is it something that drives people to come back? Is it something that really ignites referrals? Or is it something that kind of just happened, by chance and very haphazardly, and there's not that level of design we would need there to be? Let me know, if that's something you find your experience is really something that you're focusing on during summer, or maybe up until now you've kind of just let it fall by the wayside. We're also going to talk about an offer architecture that really makes you slow down proof. This is super, super important because what and how people buy during the summer, there is nuance there. And it's not exactly like what you're going to offer at other points during the year. So we're going to talk about your offer architecture as well. And then last but not least, all the marketing in the world, if you have all kinds of, things that aren't optimized or things that aren't converting well that's kind of just like pouring water into a leaky bucket. Especially during summer, that can get even worse. So we want to talk a little bit today as well about being proactive with your operations and really making sure everything you're doing all summer long is really designed to set up for success. So these are the three pillars of our trainings today, and I think you're going to take away a ton of value, but I will give you a word of advice. As with all of my trainings, you're going to get a lot. I don't need you all to implement everything overnight. I don't need you all to implement everything in the next 14 days. What we do want you to do is really look for those gems of wisdom, those 2, 3, 4 things you're going to be able to take back to your practice and implement quickly. So lots of great wisdom today. This is one of these, you're going to want to watch several times and ultimately look for those gems of wisdom that you can implement quickly. So keep these in mind. Our pillars are your experience, your offer architecture, and then just buttoning up some of those, leaky areas I see happen with practices operations all too often. So how do we go about doing it? Where do we begin? Well, first I want you to understand, what is your patient journey? What does your patient journey really look like? And if you're like most practices I talk to, they often don't realize where the patient journey begins, and they just think about what happens in the walls of their practice. Now, that is a 4-phase experience, starting with their arrival, going through to, any waiting period they might have, then through to the treatment, and obviously their departure. So these are the 4 phases of the in-practice patient journey, and where we're going to talk about a lot of our content today. But I want you to understand, even outside of these 4 areas of the journey, the patient's experience with you actually begins a lot sooner. It begins a lot earlier on. You might want to write this down. The patient's journey doesn't begin when they walk through your doors. It begins the moment they hear the name of your practice. I'm going to say that one more time. The patient's journey does not begin when they walk through your doors. It actually begins the moment they hear the name of your practice. So understand there are touch points before, during, and after their visit. We're going to talk about those a little bit momentarily. Just understand, yes, there are the 4 pillars of what happens when they're within the walls of your practice, but the actual journey itself really begins much earlier than that. It really begins the minute they hear about you. So really keep that in mind. Now, here's the thing. If we look at data out there, and this is data from AmSpa in their 2024 State of the Industry report, we know that like 68% of the average practice's revenue, it begins and really stems from, and it really leans into, referral. It's not paid ads, it's not organic SEO, it's not social media. Those are all great things, and I'm not saying don't do them, but what I am saying is you want to make sure you are really treating referrals like your golden goose. Referrals are truly the holy grail. Referrals are where affluent patients typically come from. All roads lead to getting more referrals and creating an experience that's going to make you worthy of being referable. So really cannot overemphasize or overstate the importance of referrals all year long, but especially during summer. So really want you to keep that in mind. Referrals matter. For most practices, somewhere in the neighborhood of 68% of their business actually is based in one way, shape, or form from a referral. So taking this a step further, we need to design your patient experience. I can't tell you how low the standard of the average practice's experience is. We need to do better. And how do we do better? It's by design, and by designing what we call touch point. If you think of any brand you admire, Maybe it is the Ritz-Carlton. Maybe it is the Four Seasons. Maybe it's Disney. Maybe it is a really high-end retailer that you love going to, whether it's Neiman Marcus or Saks. If you think of any brand and experience that you admire when you are the consumer, they don't just leave it to chance. Everything is done from a place of strategy and intent, and it all circles and revolves around creating touch points that leave a lasting impression. So let's talk about what a touch point is. And again, even though the patient's journey begins earlier than this, it begins the minute they hear the name of your practice. When it comes to what you need to optimize during summer, a lot of it does revolve around that experience they have within your walls. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So what are some things you want to start optimizing for? Well, you need to make a phenomenal first impression, right? That's what that patient perceives, experiences, and feels emotionally within the first 60 seconds of them walking through your doors. So where do we begin? Obviously the environment matters. Is your reception area immaculate? Or is there like paperwork and a yard sale full of brochures everywhere? Are your staff greeting people, or do they walk in and it feels cold, like they're walking into like some primary care provider's office? I've said this on previous trainings. I'm going to say it again today. If you can make it work, standing to greet someone is the most subtle gesture, but it makes a world of difference. And if there's someone new, make sure, if it's a staff, a name your staff don't recognize, they're asking, have you been here before? What brought you into us today? Why did you choose our practice? Like, get your staff to really get curious, introduce themselves, and really engage in conversation. Always use that patient's name and make sure your staff are using their names before they even go into the formal introduction, right? I can tell you how many practices I've been to. This literally happened to me 3 days ago. I have no idea what the name of anyone who helped me that day was. Not the esthetician, nor the person at the front desk. And this was in a city I don't live in. So like, obviously I'm not going to go back there, but even if I did live there, like I probably wouldn't go back there. It just all felt so impersonal. What do you do from there once you've set the tone with the right environment? Once your staff have extended a really elevated greeting, what do you do to make them feel comfortable? And this is not just having like a mini fridge full of Kirkland water in the corner, by the way. And if that's you, like, don't feel bad, we can do better. But what we really want to aim for is how do we make them feel comfortable and give them a choice of beverages? I'll be super honest, asking the patient if they want anything, getting it for them, like that's nice, but I would encourage all of you to even take it a step further. And I personally think this looks a little more elevated than having like a little mini fridge in the reception area, is a beverage menu. And then you maybe keep that in a different room, or if you want to keep it in the reception area, you can certainly do that. But having that menu of options for a patient, maybe you offer a cappuccino versus, a flat white versus an espresso. Maybe you've got a fabulous coffee machine. Maybe you have a selection of smoothies or juices, available for the patient. That's going to look different for every single one of you. And obviously some of you joining us today can see your names. You're in a surgical setting where you can only offer water, but even then, do they want room temperature or cold? Do they want still or sparkling? Like, even if all you're able to offer is water, that's cool, but don't just, like I said, have that fridge of Kirkland water. Like, even make that an experience and offer an H2O menu, right? Even the most simple thing can be elevated. That is what truly makes a touch point stand out. And so we really want to offer those comfort amenities. And then again, another thing is when it's time for them to go into the treatment room, don't just point, walk them there. And a great brand that actually teaches their staff to do that too is Publix. I don't know if any of you are in the state of Florida or Georgia where you have Publix. Like, they explicitly train their staff. You cannot just like point to something. Pointing is like janky. Pointing is like what they do at like the DMV, right? When you're getting your driver's license renewed. Don't have your staff point. Have them walk over with someone to wherever they need to go. It makes a world of difference. Small hinges swing big doors. I want you all to write that down. Small hinges swing big doors. And sometimes just a little difference in how you talk about what you offer and how you're engaging with patients, even on that first few minutes of their visit, can make a world of difference to how they perceive you. So be mindful of environment, be mindful of the greeting you extend, be mindful of what comfort amenities and what your options for refreshments look like and how you present those. And of course, make sure even the transition to that next stage in their journey that day is really elevated. These are small things you can do that make a world of difference to that first impression. So really keep these 4 in mind. And understand, we are always looking to design patient experiences that really engage the 4 senses. Sight, sound. Do you have a signature scent? Or maybe if your patients are very mindful of that and have allergies, you choose to offer a scent-free environment. But that was another thing. We're going into people's sense of smell. Touch. What do your, furniture fabrics feel like? What does the business card or brochure or intake materials you give to a patient feel like? Is that on a really elegant paper, or is it like on the cheapest you could find at Vistaprint, or heaven forbid, like the UPS store? So touch matters too. And again, yes, even taste at the things you're offering patients before they come in. So understand your patient experience revolves around 2 things. It revolves around All those elements that are sensory, like we're talking about here, sight, smell, sound, touch, taste. And then it also revolves around how we're making that first impression in that first moment or two of that patient walking through your doors. This, again, it matters all year round. It matters more than ever during the season of summer. I like to say, like, when you do this the right way, like, you want to become that summer destination that people are excited to visit. They do a little staycation and, enjoy that at your practice and maybe a little bit at home if there's a recovery period for something. You want to become your patient's summer destination. Write that down. Become your patient's summer destination. And by the way, that is something that actually works like phenomenally well as a campaign during summer. Like, make us your summer destination. That can work phenomenally too. So yes, there's what we do at the beginning of the patient's journey, and that is super important to be mindful of, absolutely. But then the other thing that I would say is also important that most patients neglect, like, they remember like part that happens in the treatment room. Practices are decent at doing that, but you forget everything before, like we just talked about. And then even worse, I would argue, you forget what happens after. Making sure, I can't tell you how many practices is so simple, but they lose sight of it. Like, making sure that you get that patient's next appointment booked in before they leave that day and offering them some kind of incentive if they choose to keep that appointment. Maybe it's a very modest amount of preferred pricing. Maybe it is some kind of voucher towards their retail purchases that day, but offer some kind of carrot at the end of the stick that if they make and keep that appointment while they're with you there that day, there's something in it for them, right? That's a great way to make sure your rebookings are where they need to be. And again, we're going to talk about this later, but rebookings are like critically important to your success during the summer. Again, what does that check-in look like after the appointment? Do you just ditch them like a bag of garbage on the side of the road? Or like, is there a personal phone call within 48 hours of their visit? Is everything just like automated email reminders and SMS blasts, like leave us a review and it feels very impersonal? Or is there personalized outreach from a provider or a member of the client care team, patient care team? What does that look like? A personal check-in makes a world of difference, right? What kind of value add do you send that patient away with? Is your post-care, collateral some janky 8.5 by 11 that looks like it was made in the 90s? Or is it like a really elegant postcard with easy and follow instructions that looks fabulous and someone can easily put on their bathroom counter? Do we give them skincare advice? Do we give them samples of anything that your vendors have provided you? What do we give them as a value add? And then within the 30 days following that visit, how do we really take them to that next step? If they haven't rebooked, how do we invite them to come back? If they have rebooked, how do we educate them on ancillary services and other things they want to be doing all summer long? I want you to write this down. Your summer windfall, if you will, is probably not going to come from new patients. It's going to come from leveraging the relationships you have and are building with your existing patient roster. Your gold mine during the summer is not about new people. There are times of the year where new patients are incredibly important. Summer, I would argue, is not one of them. It is about maximizing the audience you already have. Why? New patients are traveling during the summer. They might be doing other things with their family during the summer. It's a lot more difficult to get someone new in for an appointment during the summer months than it is to really leverage additional appointments and additional revenue from the patients you already have. So understand your summer gold mine is found in the patients you already have. Taking this a step even further, what do we do from there? Understand, I don't like the word menu. I don't like it any time of year. I really don't like it during summer. Menus are for McDonald's. Menus are for Arby's and Applebee's, okay? You do not have a menu. You are all medical aesthetic professionals. You prescribe things to people. You offer solutions, okay? Again, this is true all year round. It is nowhere more true than it is during the summer. Why? People are getting all kinds of terrible sun exposure during the summer that they need you to help them with to prevent. And when the fall months come around and they have to repair that sun damage, you need to make sure you have a protocol for them to lean into that too. People want results quickly during the summer. They're going on vacation in short order. They're going to a best friend's wedding in short order. Like, that's not going to happen when they just pick things off a menu like you're some weird fast food restaurant, in a janky neighborhood. Like, they have to have a journey to follow. So nowhere else besides, summer would I say it matters more to move away from this menu approach than it is to move towards that prescription approach. Moving away from menu, thinking in terms of prescribed solutions. Again, it's important all year round. It is mega important during summer. We're going to talk about how you do that in just a few minutes, so stick with me. Again, I talked about this earlier. One of the most important things you need to be looking at right now in April and heading into May is, what do your rebookings look like? Why is that? Revenue is, what everyone tries to look at, but that is not the most important indicator. Revenue is a lagging indicator. And what I mean by a lagging indicator is like that tells you what's already happened. That's kind of a look backward. Whereas if we look at rebookings, that is a leading indicator. It gives you an idea of what your summer is going to look like. It allows you to project more appropriately and more accurately. So don't just like look at last year's revenue during summer. Not to say you should ignore it, but that's not what's most important to me right now. As we head into the month of May, as we head into the summer months, looking at your rebookings and how well you are or aren't doing with those, that is going to be your leading indicator. That is really what I want you to aim for. And in a perfect world, you want upwards of 70% of your patients to be rebooked for their next appointment before they leave the practice that day. It might not be 70, it might be 65, it might be 72, but you want to aim for at least 70% or close to it of your patients being rebooked during summer for something, if not the service they already came in for, rebooked in some way, shape, or form. That is what's going to set you up for a summer where you're not worrying about like, oh my goodness, how are we going to get people on the books this summer? Because you've already secured that during April and May. Rebooking is truly the holy grail of setting you up for summer revenue success. I cannot overstate that. Very, very, very important. So what else do I look at? Yes, rebooking rate is your most important leading indicator during summer. Absolutely. But a few other things I would encourage you all to be taking a look at right now is, yes, looking at your rebooking rate, but also looking at like how quickly and often do referrals happen? Are you tracking that right now? If not, it's really important to start, because if you see maybe there's a certain type of patient that refers more often based on their age demographic, based on the service they came in for, based on how much they spent with you in one visit versus other groups, or maybe those referrals are really lagging, that helps you better understand who and where you need to educate patients about all the great things you can do with their friends, their family, their coworkers, you name it. I also want you all to be looking at retail attachment. Retail is such an overlooked gold mine. I think a lot of practices, it's just this like awkward upsell that happens later on at the end of the visit versus being something that's integral to that patient's entire treatment journey and their visit with you. And again, people might not be physically with you during the summer months, but even if they're traveling, they can still take their fabulous medical grade skincare with them. So retail attachment is another really important thing to look at. And then looking at all year round, but especially during the summer when we want everything we possibly can get in our marketing arsenal, looking at how good you are at getting reviews out of people. Whether that is a Google review, which is my preferred avenue, but if we can't even get a Google review, maybe it is a real self review, or if you're in the state of California or elsewhere where Yelp is really big, maybe it's a Yelp review. I'll be super honest, Yelp is not my favorite, but in certain markets, it really does matter. So how good are you at getting Yelp reviews? Google reviews, real self reviews. Even if you do something as simple as a referral postcard, maybe you've got patients that are more discreet or patients who don't, have a lot of tech savvy. If you're serving a more mature demographic, leave a review postcard in the front area. They can either send back and have the postage on there already, or they can drop in a really elegant box in the reception area. So even if it's not online, it's at least something we can use in our marketing. One size never fits all. I just want you to get really good at getting reviews somehow. Again, that's important year round, but during summer, it matters more than at any other point because it's like one of the most powerful tools you can have in your marketing arsenal. So these are 4 leading indicators I really want you to lean into. Like I said, rebooking rate is like the ultimate weather vane, if you will, of what is or isn't going to happen during the summer months. So lean into that. Really make sure you're tracking your referral velocity so you can understand how and where you need to educate patients better about how you can help their friends, families, coworkers, you name it. Definitely look at retail attachment because retail is, again, one of the most overlooked summer gold mines. And then last but certainly not least, also look like how good you are at getting reviews. That's going to be really, really important too. So these are things I want you to start tracking right now so you can set yourself up for success into the summer months. Very, very important to keep these in mind. So what do we actually offer people during the summer months? How do we price things? What do we do and not do? What do people even want during the summer? Let's talk about this a little bit. This is truly going to change your entire practice. And yes, you can use it year round, but again, where I lean into it super, super heavily is during the summer months. It is the value formula, So let's break this down. If you know anything about me by now, you know that I love a good acronym, so let's get into this. So value is really a framework for how you structure your offers, and obviously it starts with the V. V is for very popular service, okay? If you offer lasers, I may or may not say that's what you want to base your offer around in the middle of July. If you're all in different markets, you'll know your laser demand during summer better than I do. I truly believe laser season is 365 days a year, but this is all to say what is most popular with your patients during the summer months. That is what you want to build your offer around. If you're introducing something new into your practice, maybe that's what you want to build your offer around. But always start with a very popular service. That is going to be the nucleus, if you will, of your upscale offer. So we always start with a very popular service. From there, we want to really add an amplifying enhancement. Write this down. Add value and never take it away. Add value and never take it away. So if they purchase a series of, sessions with your energy device, what kind of value do they get? Maybe it's something in the form of skincare. If they purchase 2 or more syringes of dermal filler, what do they get in the form of a value add? Maybe it is an express facial with your esthetician. The key with the A, with the amplifying enhancement, you want something with little to no cost out of pocket for you. When you look at amplifying enhancements, you want something with little to minimal to no cost of goods sold. Get it as low as you can where there's still high perceived value for your patient. But A is for we take that very popular service and we add an amplifying enhancement to it. From there, we get into the L. L is for a limited time privilege. I hate monthly specials all year round. I really don't like summer specials. This is something, and you're going to want to write this one down too. We call it the law of diminishing intent. The law of diminishing intent. So what does that mean? Basically, like the longer someone has to think about something, if they want to do it or not, and like and ha, if they're going to actually do the offer, the less likely they are to do it. Maybe at the beginning of July, somebody wants your value added offer, but guess what? Oh, surprise, their car breaks down and there goes that disposable income for the month. So giving someone like weeks and weeks and weeks to think about something is a recipe for disaster. Why do you think you all do so well during the end of the year over Black Friday and Cyber Monday? Because that is a very concentrated buying window. That is a very narrow time frame someone has to take advantage of your offer. That is something you should be leaning into with all of your offers. So this is L, a limited time privilege. Now, I will say you can do this a few different ways. You can choose to limit it to a time period. Typically, I recommend 10 to 14 days. If you want to be really, really gung-ho, you could do it like in 7. But ultimately, 10 to 14 days, a very concentrated time frame. Someone has to take advantage of that offer. Or if you want to delineate it by number of these you're offering, that can really convey a sense of exclusivity. Now, very important caveat here. This is not like false hype and scarcity nonsense where you say there's only 7, but you sell like 100. That is lying to people. If you say there are only 15 of these available in your schedule, there needs to be only 15 of them available in your schedule, okay? Don't be playing into that false hype and scarcity and nonsense. That is not for us as upscale practices. We need to actually be doing this with integrity, and if we're going to limit it to a certain number of spaces, be resolute in that. So L is for limited time privilege, aka don't give people weeks upon months to think about if they want to do it or not. U is for upscale comparison. What is the retail value of this offer? We take your main treatment and the amplifying enhancement and anything else you choose to give people, and what is the retail value of that? We want to compare that. And how do you phrase this? We look at the world of makeup and cosmetics for inspiration here. A retail value of X, yours for only Y, an exclusive savings of Z. Let me repeat that. A retail value of X, yours for only Y, an exclusive savings of Z. That is how you really showcase the value of your value-added offer, of your amplifying enhancement, without making it sound cheap or hokey or like a discount. And then, last but not least, is an elegant invitation to act, or as we say as marketers, a CTA, a call to action. How do you want them to take that next step? Do you want them to speak with their provider that day, if it's something you're doing in the practice? Do you want them to go to a certain page on your website and book online? Do you want them to call the front desk? All of those are wonderful and valid, but what is the response we want from people? What is that next step we need them to take? That is the E. That is the elegant invitation to act. So here is how you're going to structure your offers all summer long and even beyond that. We take a very popular service, we add an amplifying enhancement, we delineate that with some very limited time privilege, whether that's in terms of a number of days they can take advantage of it for, or a number of these offerings you're going to sell. Either one is fine. Pick what works for you in your practice. We showcase the value with an upscale comparison, right? A retail value of X, yours for only Y, an exclusive savings of Z. That's how you do that upscale comparison. And then last but not least, E is your elegant invitation to act, right? So we always make sure that patient knows what their next steps is. This is truly the holy grail of how you do it, and it will forever transform how you put your summer offers together and create things that drive people to buy and buy quickly. So let's talk a little bit more about what this can look like. Let's also look at what we can do for retail. This is like one of my best kept, like closest to my vest secrets, but I love the concept of an SPF wardrobe during summer. When your patients are going on vacation, they're not only packing one swimsuit, they're not only packing like one outfit for dinner, they're packing a wardrobe. Well, why aren't they packing multiple sunscreen and sun protection options? What they might want to wear on the beach as a sun protection option, that might be a little bit different than what they want to wear to dinner or, breakfast that day at the resort if they're going away. So always think about the fact that people have different sun protection needs throughout their summer season. We want to make sure we equip them with that, not just with one sun protection option, but with several. Usually this is what we will curate 2 or 3 sun protection products and put them together in a really elegant bundle. Again, I really love to call it the SPF Wardrobe. And my goodness, let me tell you guys, these sell like hotcakes because most people have never thought of that before, and it's just a really intriguing idea and a very intelligent idea when you think about it. It's one of those things when patients hear it, they're like, oh wow, like this kind of just makes sense. So really lean into the sun protection wardrobe, lean into the SPF wardrobe. This alone will maximize your retail sales during the summer months. And if you really want to be proactive with this is something I would encourage you to actually do a separate email about, a whole email thinking about you've packed your vacation wardrobe, but what about your sun wardrobe? And then go introducing this concept to people. So the SPF wardrobe can truly be a game changer. This alone is going to, if you take it to heart, give you like record retail sales during your summer month. So really lean into that. It is a game changer. As for, like I talked about, your value added offers following that value stack, this is what it could look like. And again, these are hypothetical examples of what we would include, but it is where, you create like the summer protocol, or if you want to launch something during August to get people ready to undo that sun damage into the fall months, maybe you call it the unsummer protocol. But it's where you are combining several things. And again, like we talked about earlier, retail value, an exclusive savings of yours for only, or again, a retail value of your exclusive savings, yours for only. So those three things really work. Retail value, exclusive savings of, yours for only. Those matter. So keep that in mind. This is just an example of what that value added offer could really look like for you. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. When you are structuring the pricing of your SPF wardrobe or your summer protocol or whatever the case happens to be, please don't do what everyone else does and use like numbers like 9s and 7 and 4 in your pricing. That is what they do at like the Walmart. That is what they do at like the janky off-price grocery store. If you walk into Hermes or you walk into Tiffany, you're not going to see that. You are going to see round numbers. That is prices that end with 0 and 5. So for all of your summer offerings, whether it's a retail curation like your SPF wardrobe, whether it is a summer protocol or an unsummer protocol that you might offer during the month of August, really make sure that you are using round numbers, because we know from all the consumer psychology data out there, and there are scads of it, that ultimately people respond differently to round numbers. They are typically associated with higher quality goods and services, whereas those numbers that end with 9s and 7s and 4s, some marketers call it charm pricing, those are typically associated with lower quality goods. So really want you to keep that in mind. Get those 4s, 7s, and 9s out of your pricing, and all summer long and beyond, lean into those round numbers. Very important. Again, remember, we want to create urgency. I love exclusivity, but we don't want to do it in a way that feels like a hokey infomercial. So how do we do that? Again, it could be a time-delineated parameter like we talked about just a few moments ago, and some different ways you can really look to phrase that. That's one option. Or on the flip side, you can do the exclusivity angle, where you only might have a certain number of these spots available in your schedule. Or maybe you let your top spending patients know that this is a VIP offering, and you're not offering it to the entire database of patients, but only to your most loyal and most trusted patients. If you've got a membership in your practice, great to do members only things. If you're debuting something new in your practice this summer, why not create a wait list and create that excitement before you even offer it? So many ways you can lean into this. All 6 of these work. Again, please just understand you need to do this from a place of integrity and honesty. If you say there are only 15, only offer 15. Patients talk more than you think. Don't be that dishonest practice that claims to offer 15, but then sells 100. Again, that's just not doing things with integrity. So however you choose to create exclusivity and, a time limitation, all of these can work. It just needs to be truthful, honest, and again, we never do it by discounting. So very important to understand. So what do you want to look at to really see if your summer offers are performing? There's a few metrics you want to keep in mind. And again, this will look a little different for every single one of you, but some things I typically like to look at as far as what we see as an indicator of how well your summer offers may or may not be doing. First is how many people are taking you up on the offer. Generally, you want a minimum of 40% of your audience taking you up on an offer. If you're below that, it might just be a bit of a, check engine light, if you will, that wasn't an offer that resonated with your patient base, which isn't the end of the world. It's just feedback. And so, you launch a bit later in the summer, it needs to be refined a little bit. But you want to look at the take-up rate of your offer. You want to look at, how many people are new patients taking you up on this offer versus existing patients? Now, again, if this is something you're only doing for your members, that's different. But I'm talking a value-added offer that you are making available to everyone. Generally speaking, in a perfect world, you want about 30% or more of people taking you up on these offers to be brand new patients. Now, here's another caveat to this. A lot of you have an email database that is only your existing patients. That is good and bad. It's mostly bad, because then people don't know what you've got going on. People don't know what's happening during summer. So yes, you've got these patients to be hanging out on your social media, but you haven't converted them over to email database subscribers. You need to have them in both places. That is truly the only way you are going to get to this 30% new patient uptake on your summer offers. If you are only relying on people on social media who haven't heard of you, but your email database is just existing patients, that is like pulling a boulder up a hill. So ultimately, what you can do now is, as you get ready to launch your summer offers, on your Instagram stories every 5 to 6 days, let people know, hey guys, guess what? Our most exclusive and exciting content doesn't actually make it onto social media. That is something that's exclusive to our VIP list. Then it's a DM or comment below to learn how to do that. And then you can set up an automation that gets people subscribed to your email database. So generally, you want ideally at least 30% of people taking you up on your summer offers, provided it's not member exclusive, to be new patients. How are we doing in terms of upsell and retail sales? How much of your summer revenue is coming from retail and ancillary offerings? As a minimum, 15% of your summer revenue should be coming from new and ancillary offerings. Ideally, somewhere closer to 20, but 15 is like your floor. So if you're below that, again, it's just a sign that either you haven't been proactive enough with talking to your patients about retail and additional services. If you are there, it just means probably the great news. Your staff is good at educating people. So keep that in mind, right? And again, very important caveat here, as I put on the slide, non-discounted, right? These are additional retail offerings or additional services, things like, your esthetician, that are done at full price or as part of a value add. And then retention, we want to make sure people are coming back within 90 days of a service, both new and existing patients. And my benchmark, again, I teach selling to the affluent. I teach building an upscale practice. My benchmark for retention is very, very, very high. You will not see many professionals in the industry who have this high of a benchmark. Again, I am setting the standard. That's what my whole mission in this industry is. I aim for practices to retain 85% or more of people within the next 90 days following that visit, right? That's high. It takes the right experience to do it. But when you really take everything I'm teaching to you to heart, it is totally doable. Our clients do it on a very regular basis. So this is definitely a very aspirational target. Mine is quite high, but that is what I want you to aim for. I want you to aim for an 85% or better retention rate. In my world, if you're below that, that means your patient experience is not where it needs to be, or something else in what you're doing during that visit before and after is not where it needs to be. But you want to aim for a very high retention rate. So keep that in mind. So these are things you want to measure your performance on all summer long. So let's talk a little bit more about, why someone's going to buy during the summer or at any point of the year, frankly. But again, this is especially relevant during the summer season. The first is aspiration. Who does that patient want to become? Maybe they are, maybe they're a GLP-1 patient who's lost some weight and they want to feel confident in a bikini for the first time when they go on their beach vacation. Maybe it's someone who is, newly on the dating scene and they want to feel their most confident as they are single for the summer. Whatever it happens to be, aspiration is a very powerful emotion to lean into. I don't particularly like marketing to fear, but it is something that patients do buy based on. So rather than think of it as fear alone, I would encourage you to even take it a step further from what I put on my slide and think of it as fear/avoidance. What does somebody want to avoid? Do they want to avoid looking done? Do they want to avoid being burnt with a cheap laser? Like, what are they looking to avoid? Not saying you should lead with that in your marketing, but just be aware of it, and where it's relevant, discuss it. It is a buying factor patients lean into. I don't like fear-driven marketing, so it's not my favorite, but I would be remiss if I didn't teach it to you. The third is status. You don't want to be like that practice that everyone and their mom and their dog and their neighbor feels like they're going to. Like, you really want to convey, without being snooty, you want to convey a certain sense of exclusivity. So status is absolutely an emotion that we need to tap into because it's one that drives patients to buy, and it needs to actually mean something to be a patient of your practice versus this like 40 location chain that will take anyone with a pulse and an Amex. You need your practice patient roster to feel valued, feel important, feel like it means something to come to your practice. So status is certainly one. Confidence is a really important one as well, right? We all are most aware of that one, so it's why I kind of left it towards the end. But ultimately, the reason anyone is coming in for any aesthetic treatment is they want to look and feel better with themselves, because when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you do good. And then last but not least, and this is especially important right now in the age of AI, connection. People want to feel a sense of belonging. People want to feel like they know you and your providers. People want to feel like they are doing business with people and not this like faceless mega chain. So tapping into connection in your marketing is very, very important all summer long. Again, this is important year round, but it truly matters more than anywhere during the summer months, because we need to give people that little extra nudge to come in, and tapping into these emotional drivers is exactly how you're going to do it. So just some examples here of what messaging that speaks to aspiration could sound like. what messaging that speaks to avoidance or fear could sound like. Really speaking to status, that can sound a very specific way without sounding snooty as well. So some examples here of what that can look like, as well as examples for confidence and connection. You definitely want to really lean into 2 or 3 of these with your summer marketing. If you really can lean into all 5, you're going to be golden, but at a bare minimum, 2 or 3. Very, very important. Here's just some more examples of how we weave these emotions into the patient journey. When it comes to that arrival element, it needs to feel premium with a signature scent if you choose to do that, greeting people by name. Notice when you walk into a really high-end restaurant, a really high-end boutique, or a really high-end hotel, notice how they greet you. That is very coordinated, and that's just not like a weird coincidence. That is by design. Even really looking at like what happens when someone is waiting for their treatment. How do you foster a sense of community there? Do you have an elegant retail setup, or is it like some cluttered shelf with 80 of each product jammed into the corner? Like, what does that look like? Great connection there. Have a book of patient stories in the reception area. If you're doing things in the community, have pieces that talk about how you and your staff give back. Again, leaning into different things like aspiration and avoidance during that consultation. And of course, leave them on a strong note. Leave them feeling confident. Everyone loves a good compliment. Make sure your front desk staff are well trained to compliment someone as they're leaving that day at the point of sale. Makes a world of difference. Really want you to understand that. If there's 3 things I see practices get wrong during the summer months, number 1 is, again, they're like, oh gosh, it's slow, let's discount our most popular service. That is like the kiss of death. Oh, I hate that word, but it is the kiss of death. It truly is. Like, never discount your hero products and services because no one then will ever pay full price for them. Please don't do that. Follow the value framework. Don't be the cheap practice. I just tell you how to avoid that. And then again, like I said, where most practices end up getting frustrated during the summer is like their marketing isn't working, but you're trying to get new people, which is literally the hardest thing to do during the summer, versus focusing on the patients you already have. I cannot emphasize that enough. Your gold mine this summer, like I said earlier, is not going to come from new patients. It is not. It is going to come from leaning into the patient base you already have and getting them to buy more and more often during that period of seasonality, which, by the way, seasonality is a choice. That is a whole conversation for another day. But we have climbed to a record months during the summer, and if you can follow these principles, you will too. And then last but not least, you just splash out a bunch of June and July offers with no emotional framing, just thinking people are going to say yes to it. You need to tap into emotion during the summer more than any other period during the year. Maybe you do a jet setter program in the month of May and early June that gets people ready for when they're traveling in July and August. And you lean into aspiration. Again, there are so many ways you can do this. We just talked about a whole bunch, but you need to frame the offer to an emotional driver. Don't just list a bunch of services and their prices and think people are going to say yes. That is a recipe for disappointment. Okay, so never discount your hero services and popular services during summer, or ever, frankly, but especially during summer. During the summer months, if you want to keep running your campaigns for new patients, go for it, but that is not what I'm concerned with. I am concerned with leaning into our existing patient base during the summer, like 10 times more than I am with getting new people during the summer. And then last but not least, don't fail to frame your offers around an emotional driver. Don't just pile it high and sell it cheap. We have to leave people feeling compelled. Very, very important. So again, start having these conversations with your patients now. Don't just be like, oh, well, we're not going to do this during summer, which again, I believe laser season is 365 days a year, but really frame it from the standpoint of like a summer preservation protocol. Very, very important. So how do we actually track and optimize all of this? Let's talk about this a little bit. Just some things you want to be mindful of, like right now. May and June are pre-summer in my mind. Summer is like July and August. So some very important things to keep in mind during the pre-summer season, right? Get your offers squared away now. Train your team now. Really assess and evaluate your patient experience now. And really begin to look at how you're going to be able to be better at tracking your performance and tracking those key performance indicators, rebookings being the most important one. Some EMRs are better at this than others, but you want to make sure in some way, shape, or form you have tracking mechanism. And then again, as we head into the mainstay of summer, that's your July and August, be very agile in tracking how your offers are performing. Really make sure that you are being resolute about your retail, resolute about following up with your patients. Cannot really overemphasize that. I would encourage you to incentivize your team during summer. Summer business is there and it's there for the taking. You just have to be a little more proactive about it. So what does a really strong summer look like from a team incentive? Are you doing, a fun day out with the team? Is it some kind of other, incentive that's going to look different for every single one of you? But incentivize your teams in some way, shape, or form to really perform at their A game, which they should be every day of the year, but especially during the summer runs, we're just going to take that little bit extra effort from them. And then last but not least, especially during the month of August, I like to pre-sell things like BBL Heroic or IPL if you have different technology in your practice. I know a lot of you here today are Cyton users, right? Like pre-sell those things, both retail and treatment modality, that your patients are going to need heading into the fall. That's a great way during August, which is the slowest month. Again, that's a choice. that's different webinar for another day. Really pre-frame those things you're going to need during the fall to really drive revenue during the slow season of August. And again, slow there in big quotation marks. But like I said, that's another webinar for another day. Like I said, your team is your biggest asset. You can, listen to me all day long, get jazzed about these ideas all day long. But if your team isn't able to follow them through, it's like kind of all in vain. So just some things you really need to make sure your team are clear on. Why you're doing things in a new and exciting way during the summer. What does a performance goal look like during Q3 for all of you? Do you have morning huddles? I am a big believer in the morning huddle. All day, every week, every season, all year long. If you have the time in your schedule to pull it off, I love like a weekly lunch and learn or like a weekly deep dive on both business and clinical topic. Your staff don't know what they don't know about the business side. And if you're a practice right now where like you're a little more opaque with your staff about these things, I would very strongly encourage you to begin being a lot more transparent with your team, right? They can only grow if they know what they're growing towards and how they're going to do it. Super important. And then last but not least, again, incentives. That's going to look different for every single one of you, and not just hitting the goal, but the actions that lead to that goal. Like for your front desk staff, are they consistently getting people rebooked? Well, that's an action that's going to lead to their revenue goal. So don't just tie everything to money numbers, right? Money numbers, I just make up a term I think I did, right? Don't just lead everything with the financial side of it. Really tie incentives to those actions that are going to create the financial outcome. Very important. And I do love team-based outcomes as well, because again, they just really encourage everyone to work together. So very important to keep in mind. Just some things, with some scripting here, things you're probably going to hear a lot of during the summer months, right? Like, oh, well, I've already got a sunscreen at home, or like, oh, well, I'll just wait until the fall for my lasers, or, oh, that seems expensive or something you're going to do during the summer. And, oh, well, I don't have time for a full consultation. Lean into being proactive with all of it. Very important. Again, just some things you're going to want to track, what your offer dashboard could look like. This is very much just an example with my KPIs and metrics here. It's going to look different for every single one of you, so keep those in mind. Again, what I want you to focus on right now in this pre-summer heading into summer period, auditing your patient experience, building your offer architecture, using the value framework I just shared with you, and then again, getting your team aligned. These are the 3 most important things you can do like literally after this webinar tomorrow morning. So keep these in mind. I would love to hear what you thought of this video. What did you like? What else do you want to learn? Let me know in the comments below. We're always posting new content, so make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel as well. And of course, if you're looking to learn about how we can help you make your marketing that much more uncommon, that much more elevated, and you really want to understand what you can achieve for your practice, go to marketinginsightsmeeting.com. We would love to chat with you and learn all about your goals.